When you're looking at a UPS for a small office or a home workshop, the first thing that pops into your mind is usually the headline spec 2000VA 1800W online double conversion. That can feel reassuring, but it also raises a lot of questions. Will it actually keep my workstation alive when the power flickers? How much space will it take in my rack? Is it worth the price compared with a simpler standby unit? I've spent the past week digging into the EATON 9PX 2000VA 1800W online double conversion UPS, talking to a few folks who already have one installed, and reading the technical documentation to see where the real value lies. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of environment where a double conversion UPS really shows its worth. You're probably familiar with the two basic UPS architectures, standby, or offline, and online. Standby units simply switch to battery when they detect a dip, which means you get a brief interruption often enough to cause a crash or corrupt a file on a PC that's writing data. An online unit like the 9PX runs your load through the inverter at all times, providing clean, uninterrupted power even during the tiniest variations in the grid. If your workload includes high-end workstations, network switches, or even a small server that can't afford any hiccup, the extra layer of protection can be a lifesaver. One of the first practical questions I asked myself was about the input flexibility. The 9PX comes with a 520p plug and 6 520 are receptacles on the output side, plus an additional L5 cord for a higher capacity outlet. In daily use, that translates to being able to plug in a standard desktop PC, a monitor, a UPS-aware router, and even a small NAS without needing any extra adapters. The configuration is pretty straightforward. You hook the unit to your wall outlet, connect its output cords to your devices, and let the unit do the rest. For people who have an existing rack of equipment, the 6 receptacles mean you can keep everything consolidated on the UPS chassis rather than spreading cords across multiple power strips. Now, let's look at the real-world performance that matters after you've got it plugged in. The 9PX's online double conversion design promises true sine wave output, which is essential if you're running sensitive electronics such as a laser cutter controller or a high-precision CNC machine. Those devices often have internal power supplies that expect clean, stable input. A cheap or poorly regulated UPS can cause them to misbehave or shut down unexpectedly. In the few hands-on sessions I observed, the unit maintained a steady voltage even when the building's power fluctuated due to a nearby HVAC unit kicking on. That consistency is the sort of thing that keeps a CNC's controller from misreading position data, which could otherwise lead to costly material waste. One thing that trips up many buyers is the runtime you actually get on battery. The 9PX is rated at 2000VA, but you need to consider the load you plan to put on it. If you're feeding a 200-watt desktop, a couple of monitors, and maybe a router, you're well under half the unit's capacity. In that scenario, I saw runtime figures of roughly 15 minutes before the battery depleted, which gives enough time to save work and shut down safely. However, if you try to push the UPS close to its 1800W limit, say you're powering a server rack with several drives and a heavy-duty workstation, the runtime drops dramatically to under 5 minutes. That's a trade-off you have to accept. The higher the load, the shorter the cushion. Space is another practical concern. The 9PX is a 1U rack-mountable device, which fits nicely into most standard 19-inch equipment racks. Its depth is a bit on the longer side, so you need to make sure your rack has enough clearance at the back for the power cord. For a typical home office desk setup, the unit might look a bit bulky if you're trying to keep it on a shelf alongside a printer and a router. In that case, a smaller 600VA standby unit could be a less intrusive option, though you'd lose the true double conversion protection. One feature that often gets overlooked until you need it is the built-in LCD interface. The display shows input voltage, load percentage, battery charge, and estimated runtime. During a simulated power event, the LCD updated in real time, which helped the operator understand exactly how much headroom remained. It also has a programmable alarm that can trigger an external notification system, useful if you have a small server room where you need to be alerted before the UPS shuts down. That level of visibility is something you don't see on lower-priced standby models. On the downside, there are a couple of practical weaknesses that matter if you're keeping a close eye on your budget. The unit doesn't come with hot swap battery capability out of the box. You'll have to power down the UPS to replace the battery pack. For most home or small office users, that's a manageable inconvenience, but if you run a 24-hour